What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 58 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about this weekend's card. We got Corey Sandhagen against TJ Dillashaw. It's a really strong card. It's borderline pay-per-view worthy, to be honest, after, last week's dumpster fire and sandwich between that and next week's dumpster fire. But this is a good one. I think there's some decent betting spots here. I think that, really top to bottom, there's a couple low-level fights at the bottom of the card, but I think there should be a lot of entertaining stuff. You got Mia here tonight, John Stargarian at MMA Fox, Lags _ the Capper. Luke should be back next week. He broke his computer, so that is why he is still out at the moment. He will be back in due time. Sees a game time decision. He may be joining us tonight. He may not be. We had to move this up because I just had something at home going on, and I cannot be doing it at 10 tonight. But going forward, we'll be back to our normal spot at 10 p.m. in the future. As usual, if you like Bet Online, it's one of the best books for MMA, so I would hope you do like it. But if you've never signed up there before, use the promo code CLUBSUB for up to with that 50% bonus up to your first $1,000 deposit with the promotion. Use CLUBSUB. And guys, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It helps us out a bit, helps our SEO, and yeah. So we're gonna get right into it. Lags, thoughts on the first fight of the night? Diana Belbita had a Goldy.
People were saying Hu Yaozong and Alan Ahmed was a shit fight. But, this is kind of the definition of a shit fight, in my opinion. I think what the UFC's trying to do here is get Anna Goldy a win. And optically, really, I think either girl could end up winning this fight. I think it's coin flip. The line's kind of corrected itself now. I know a lot of money people are coming in on Belbita, and, I get it. Or Goldy, sorry.
Yeah, look, it's a shit. I agree with you completely. It's a total shit show. But, I don't know. Because, I looked at it, and I guess I see the angle on Belbita plus 160. But just, neither girl's very good. I don't rate Goldy. But, at least Goldy, beat Jillian Robertson regionally. She's fought, real competition to some degree. You look at Diana Belbita. Here are the records of her last 4 victories are 1 and 2. That is one girl who is 1 and 2 and 3 girls who are 0 and 0. No bullshit, And so it's I look at that and it's this girl really hasn't been tested at all. She got subbed by Jojua super fast. McCann kind of beat the shit out of her. If you want to make a case that, Belbita has value, okay, but I don't know. I have to see her win a fight in the UFC before I'm willing to actually, to take a shot against somebody. I don't like Goldy much, but Goldy at least throws a lot of strikes. So, yeah, no strong feelings there. We'll move on. We got Sijara Eubanks taking on Elise Reed. I think we both have pretty strong feelings here. I played Eubanks for 2 units at minus 275. I actually just played her inside the distance for 1 unit at plus 150. I am waiting for a subline here because I'm probably going to take a nibble at that as well. I was also thinking of, and I'll mention the other fight when we get there, of parlaying. And if you mentioned it, I believe, earlier today, that little parlay, I'll let you touch on it a bit. But I think Eubanks is going to fucking smash this girl. That's really, Elise Reed is 4-0. She's a 115-pounder who used to fight at 105 pounds. Her best win is Hillary Rose, who is terrible. Hillary Rose mounted her. She was mounted in the fight before that by bad grapplers. She's an okay striker, seems like. But again, she's fought nobody that would really test that. And now she takes on Sijara Eubanks, who may be 6-6, but who's been fighting the best fighters in the world at 125 and 135 for 5 years. Her metrics are elite. She's an excellent wrestler. She's got a great top game. Even on the striking, her metrics are pretty good, and she's going to hit harder than any girl Reed's seen before. A couple months back, we had Ricky Simone taking on that Italian bum. I don't remember his name. Apologies, Italian guy. But we talked about, Simone was very live to sub him because the level in competition was massive step down on the mat. And I think it's the same here. Eubanks doesn't have a finish yet, but look at the girls she's fighting. They're all very, very good. And she's coming down from 135 to 125. Reed fought at 105 a couple fights ago and can't grapple. I think tying a bunch of stuff to Eubanks kills this girl is very fair. What do you think?
Yeah, kind of similar. I think any prop really tied to Sarge killing this girl is kind of good in my opinion. The only thing really holding me back from parlaying her right now, which, you touched on a little bit, Eubanks parlayed up with Lad later up on the card. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of waiting to see the weight, to be honest, because obviously Eubanks coming down to 125. I'm kind of skeptical about her making that weight. Obviously, she's missed it in the past, but obviously she just killed this girl. I mean, the levels in this fight and the grappling should be obvious from the get-go.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. They're saying you're echoing right now. You sound okay to me.
I can come back.
Yeah, just bounce in and come back in. Sorry about that, guys. Flags will be back in 2 seconds. But while we're waiting, we jump into the next fight. We got a banger here in the third fight of the night. We got Julio Arce taking on Andre Ewell. The truth is, I'm probably a bit higher personally on Andre Ewell than the market is. It's just, do I like him in this spot? I don't know. It's one of the lines that stood out to me when they first came out for this fight. I was like, man, Ewell's a big dog against Arce. It doesn't really make a ton of sense. But, the more I think about it, the more I think Arce probably has him covered a bit. I guess the reason I couldn't lay a price with Arce here is I do think he's probably better everywhere. He's got a good size grappling advantage, but Arce is not a great wrestler. He doesn't attempt many takedowns either, and so I don't think it's really a lock he's going to hit takedowns in this spot. And on the feet, look, I think he's the better striker, but I think the margins standing are fairly thin, at least early in the fight. The reason I won't play Ewell, even though I do like Ewell's boxing, I like his management of distance, and I think if Arce lets him hang on the outside, Ewell's going to have some success. The problem is, if I think the early rounds are 50-50-ish or even slightly in Arce, because I do think that's fair with Arce, being a Golden Gloves guy, he's got very good boxing for the UFC. The problem is Ewell has horrible gas, and we see it every single fight. The guy slows down, and so it's he seems like value, and when they're both fresh, I think Ewell covers this number. But if I assume that Arce is going to win the third round 70-80% of the time, and the first two are going to be competitive, you wind up right about -200 or -230 for Arce. So, I'm passing. I think this could be competitive early, but I do think, Arce takes over late. Lags, what do you think here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a super... So real quick, am I echoing?
You sound fine to me. You sound fine to me the whole time. So
for me, I kind of think this is similar to the Tavares Akhmedov fight that we had, not too long ago. I think this is, Ewell's going to be competitive early, but I think the longer this fight goes, I think Arce is going to end up taking over, like you touched on. Ewell's cardio is not that great, but I think the margins on the feet aren't too, like you touched on, aren't too wide enough to really justify -200.
Yeah.
So I think when FanDuel releases the round 3 decision prop, I think I might look into that depending on the price on that one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair way to play it. They're saying you're still echoing. You want to try to just make the audio just directly through the iPad?
Yeah.
That should clean it up.
About that.
Yeah, no worries. Happens, obviously. Happens enough on my end, so. But yeah, guys, we'll move on. Next fight of the night, we got Adrian Yanez. He's taking on Randy Costa here. The line, it's kind of a weird fight to me. The line seems wide, like -230 right now is what you're seeing around Yanez. He's all the way up at -250 on BetMGM, BetOnline -225. And I don't really think, there is a massive discrepancy here between in skill-wise between Yanez and Costa. I do think Yanez is a better boxer. I agree with everybody when they talk about how slick Yanez's hands are. They are very slick. He hits very hard. But alternatively, I also think, Yanez has virtually no defense at all. I touched on this a bit when he fought Gustavo Lopez. Everybody hits him clean. Yanez really, when he's not finishing guys, isn't really outpacing guys at all. And so now he's fighting Randy Costa, who, look, Costa's wide open. He's very hittable, but he's going to go for it, and he hits very, very hard. And so, I don't know. I can't help but think here, the opportunities for Costa to hurt Yanez early in this fight are going to be there. He is going to hit Yanez in this fight. Yeah, Yanez may take those shots and give back 2 to 3, but a guy with Costa's finishing ability, against the guy that's as hittable as Yanez, it's hard for me to see how he's plus 185. Like, I don't have a bet. I think first round KO is interesting, but even if you like make the assumption Costa slows, he's never shown an issue with durability, and it is the kind of situation where I think Costa potentially could hurt him twice and win the fight that way. So I think it's an interesting fight. I would not be comfortable laying Yanez at all. Lags, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just doing my AirPods out and disconnected, so I had to leave the browser but come back in. To be honest, as soon as this fight got pulled, I like the under. I like violence behind it, but obviously we have a 1.5, which is plus 110. I'm hoping FanDuel releases an under 2.5. Like a minus 180 line, which I think it is right now. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much think this is highly volatile striking fight. And it, obviously, like you said, anybody really laying that minus 200 on Yanez is kind of crazy, I think. I mean, I think Costa early, I think he's going to cause problems for Yanez, but I think Yanez has that crisper striking, but Costa's still explosive, early in this fight. So it wouldn't surprise me again if Costa finishes something like plus 185 could look like a steal of a line because of the type of fight we're going to see here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you're going to kill me here, Lags. I actually think I found out what the issue was, and I think it's on my end. I had echo cancellation turned off. You want to put your AirPods back in? I know. No, but I agree with you. Like, I don't. It's really just hard for me to understand, how you could be comfortable with 70% and a guy like Costa who has that many finishes in his career. But yeah, we'll move on. We got the next fight of the night. We got Ian Heinisch taking on Nasruddin Imavov. And this is an interesting fight. And it's one where, like, I am not really a particularly big Heinisch guy, to be honest with you guys. I think Ian is decent. I think he's a solid wrestler when he goes to it. I actually kind of like the game plan he had against Kelvin in his last fight where he actually was attempting takedowns a bit more aggressively. It backfired, but Kelvin gets a lot of shit, but let's be real. Kelvin's been beating guys in the top 10 for 5 years now. You look at his other losses, the close fight with Brunson, he faded down the stretch in that fight, but Brunson's a top 5 guy, really, top 5 to 8 in that range. And then his only other loss is Omari Akhmedov, who, I know Omari just got cut, but Omari's been a top 10 to 15 guy forever. And none of those fights are really bad beatings. And I know that's, wiki capping it a bit, but, let's look at Imavov. Imavov was going life or death with Jordan Williams, was basically had no energy for the last 10 minutes of that fight. Phil Hawes.
Phil Hawes. Literally the same exact thing.
Had enough energy to hold him on the fence. And I look at it and I'm like, man, one guy's proven himself against a very, very, very high level of competition. One guy hasn't. And look, while I think Imavov's probably the cleaner striker, he is hilariously hittable. So it's even if Heinisch is a complete fucking moron and just decides to swing with him, he's going to hit him a lot. That's going to happen. And Heinisch hits pretty hard. And so I think he has a legit minus 250, minus 300 path if he just decides to, attempt takedowns for 15 minutes. But even if they stand and swing, I think it's a close fight. I haven't played it yet, but I think I'm probably going to hit Hein. What do you think, Lags?
Yeah, I think I'm playing a small Heinisch play as well. Just one unit on him, probably minus 145, minus 150, because I kind of think that, what you're relying on Ian to do in this fight is kind of what he's been doing his entire career. Bring the pace, bring the grappling, bring the pressure to Imavov, gas him out later in the fight goes. Probably get a late finisher depending on, obviously, how aggressive he is with that grappling path. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you here. Small play on Ian, but, yeah, again, kind of similar to fights we touched on earlier. The margins on the feet, again, early in the fight, I think could be close. So, but I don't mind the price minus 145 on Ian. Yeah,
I agree completely. I don't think it's bad. We move on. This is a fun one. We got Punahele Soriano against the Club and Sub Podcast number one worst enemy, public enemy number 1, Brendan Allen. I'll let you take this away first here.
Yeah, so I think similar to the Yanez Costa fight, this is violence, personified. I think pretty much this is Puna round 1, and yeah, I mean, the longer this fight goes, Allen probably has a chance to take over, sub in the second round, third round.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of every single fight. Puna's cardio is a huge liability, really, until he shows me otherwise. So I like Puna round 1. I'm waiting for FanDuel again to release that. I think it was around plus 300, plus 400. So I think that's kind of how you target this fight. And then either you opt to live bet Allen after the first round if he's still alive, or you opt to take late finish props.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I actually just noticed something interesting. So I hadn't looked at any props regarding this fight, and I just saw fight doesn't go the distance is minus 250. That doesn't seem That
to
actually,
be honest with you, I was looking to parlay that to minus 250. I guess now that you say that, probably with that that doesn't go the distance in the Costa fight. That was minus 210, I think, last time I saw it. Which I think is crazy. I think that's pretty low.
I guess my thing is, what is the scenario where this go like? So I guess from a breakdown perspective, I have some. I mean, obviously, I faded Puna against Todorovic. That didn't go well, but I have major questions about Puna. You know, obviously he hits very hard, but he has really bad cardio. You know, our boy Sean, he showed this picture on Twitter earlier. If you look at the break when they're trying to find Todorovic's mouthpiece, Puna's hands on knees, breathing real deep. And I think we were all chatting during that fight where I was like, man, if he can just get to the bell here, he's going to take over this fight in the second half. And like the only time he's gone out of round one when he fought Jamie Pickett, he looked in dire straits the last 2 rounds of that fight. But Pickett can't wrestle, and so he just decided to wrestle him. And so, like, I have big-ish questions with Puna's cardio. His defensive grappling, I taped it pretty extensively. There's no evidence really of him on his back. Not much evidence of him defending takedowns. Narco just mentioned it in the chat. Like, Haas said he's 3 minutes of gas, and I agree. Narco mentioned it in the chat. Allen has a great chin, and it's kind of true. Look, I know he got finished by Strickland, but he got finished after eating about 80 howitzers right to the chin directly. And so I'm kind of in this place where it's like, maybe Puna has great defensive jiu-jitsu and great takedown defense, but we haven't seen it tested. Yeah. And so we have the cardio dynamic where he has 3 minutes to kill him. And then if he doesn't do that, you know Allen is a pit bull. And even though I cannot stand Brendan Allen, the guy is going to do nothing but come forward and try to make things happen. And so I'm looking at this, and it's like, what's the scenario where this goes the distance, really, right? Like,
because even if Puna gasses out, so you think Brendan Allen's either getting the ground and pound finish or, you know, probably rear naked choke. Puna kills him in the first round, probably highly outcome.
Right.
I mean, is there any scenario really where you see Allen getting top time but not finishing? I guess would be my point. That's probably the only
unless Puna's got like jiu-jitsu that we don't know about, which again could be the case. But, like, yeah, I mean, I think Puna round one is probably like a 30% outcome, to be honest with you. Like, it's a very, very high percentage outcome.
Which it looks like it's currently sitting at, I don't even have it, to be honest with you. No, it looks like they have a bunch of Allen props. They don't have any of the Puna props. But they have Puna inside the distances plus 160, so.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And Sean just mentioned it. Like, if you actually go back and watch that Dusko fight, it actually made me think Dusko was good for briefly, and led to me betting him against Gregory Rodriguez. Fucking stupid.
And then to touch on the other props I mentioned too, Allen sub round 2 plus 1100, Allen sub round 3 plus 1600.
That sub round 2 I kind of like a lot because I think if it goes sideways for Puna, it goes sideways fast.
KO round 2 is plus 1800.
For Allen or Puna?
Yeah, for Allen.
I mean, Allen hits pretty hard, man, to be honest with you. Like, I think he is a terrible striker, but he does hit pretty hard. He's knocked down a bunch of guys. Yeah, very good ground and pound. And also, you know, maybe Puna will just pull a Tom Breese and just give up with him on top of him. But anyway, we'll move on. But this fight's a banger, and we have a fun one here, and I'll stay with you here, Legs. Fun one could be an ugly one. We got Mickey Gall taking on Jordan Williams. What are your thoughts here?
Another one, I guess I really don't have a strong take here. I mean, I kind of think, again, this is like the UFC probably trying to get Mickey a win here, but I think Mickey's shit. It's like, I don't know. It's kind of the battle of like low-level fighters, to be honest. In my opinion, I don't know. I just don't really have a strong read. Like Mickey's performances aren't really too inspiring to bet on him.
Yeah. I mean,
that's kind of what I thought is him as a big dog.
No, I agree. To be honest, like my initial read of this fight was like before I taped it, I was like, I kind of like Gall. You know, I mentioned to you guys, I was like, I think Gall's striking's gotten better. You know, I recall it getting a lot better against Perry. And then you go back and you look at it, it's like Perry's fallen so far from where he was like 3 or 4 years ago as a striker. And like, man, Gall is not good, dude. Like it's really, really bad. It's like, I had recalled his performances against Tuari and Perry being a lot better than they were. He was gassed 6 minutes into the Tuari fight, though. It's just that Tuari's bad. You could see noticeably in round 2, about 2 minutes into round 2 against Perry, suddenly he's breathing deep and not doing anything. And like, I don't even really think he's much of an offensive grappler, if I'm being honest. It's like you look at the guys he subbed. Mike Jackson, who didn't have a professional fight. CM Punk, who didn't have a professional fight. George Sullivan, who was completely washed out. Like, he's not going out there and subbing guys who are good grapplers. He doesn't have a good wrestling game. He's got a horrible gas tank. And I think, his striking's gotten better, but I couldn't say it's better than like a C+. And all of this is to say I have a ton of issues with Jordan. Well, not a ton. I like Jordan Williams coming into the promotion. But the way he gassed against Imavov was scary. That was very scary. I think he's more skilled everywhere here. I actually think he could submit Gall. I actually don't think that's a bad prop shot, to be honest. But he gassed out bad in that fight. The story's out there about him being a diabetic and not cutting weight, but now he is cutting weight, which I think between the gassing and now you add that, aspect to it, that's kind of scary. Gall doesn't really have hands, but
he wasn't WWE champ.
He did beat a former WWE champ. I don't know. It's kind of an ugly fight. I think, to be honest, skill-wise, I think Williams is minus 300 here. I just have some concerns about what the durability cardio look like, with, all that other shit behind the scenes. If he were to get down to like the minus 150 range, I think I'd probably take a poke though. Moving on, we got Macy Barber, the future, taking on Miranda Maverick. And I like Barber a lot here, to be honest. I played her for a couple units here at plus 140. I guess my view is, to be honest, I bet her against Grasso, and I recalled her looking a lot worse against Grasso than she did. Look, at the end of the day, we know Barber's not a great striker, and girls like Grasso who can extend their combinations to like 4 or 5 punches are going to absolutely eat her up. But there's not many women who can actually do that in the UFC at the moment. And the rest of that fight, if she doesn't get swept at the end of round 2 and end with Grasso on top, she probably wins the fight. I actually thought she held her own there. We saw, even against someone as technical and sharp as Grasso, her willingness to bite the mouthpiece and just kind of unload and be physical still goes a long way. And so I am still very bullish on Barber. Her physical intangibles are off the charts for a woman fighter, for a female fighter. And she's only 23. And so I'm expecting improvements every fight. I think what we've seen now is enough to beat a lot of ranked fighters. And on the other side, we have Miranda Maverick, who I think is getting, just way too many props for, basically beating up on cans in, Invicta for a while. Comes in, fights Jojua. I had recalled her dicing Jojua up. Jojua hit her a ton in that fight before Jojua got busted open. Maverick was winning the round, but she was getting touched up every time she entered the pocket. And then the same thing in the Jillian fight. Obviously Jillian won round 2 via grappling, but you watch them on the feet and it's Maverick's sharper, but Jillian is not a striker, doesn't even like striking, and is landing a lot on her in that fight. And so I look at it and I'm like, those girls are landing on her and they're letting her go first. Barber's going to bite the fucking mouthpiece and is going to throw. She's not going to go first in this fight, and Maverick's hittable. And so on the feet, I favor Barber pretty clearly. Same thing in the clinch. The real question is just what happens if it goes to the ground. There's an argument to be made Maverick could dominate her there after the Roxy fight. But first of all, Roxy's a much better top game than Maverick does. Barber did tear her ACL in that fight, even though she'd gotten stuck on the mat in round 1. And, I kind of think that's kind of an outlier because we saw her kind of hold her own on the mat before. She's had a bad tendency to play guard, but she's athletic. She should be able to work up if she wants to. And I don't really think there's anything that impressive about Maverick's grappling. Maybe I'm dramatically underestimating it, but I don't think she's a good wrestler. I don't think she's going to win the clinch the way Grasso did. And I think for Maverick to be captive favorite, you pretty much think she has to get 5 to 7 minutes of control, and that's a lot of control time, and I just can't really get there. So I think Barber's 55, 60% here. I think she should be a clear favorite. I don't really see the Maverick hype. How about you, Legs?
So kind of similar thoughts. Exactly. I think that, again, she I think Macy should be a slight favorite here just because of the finishing upside, and she has the power on the feet, but again, obviously it hits the ground, But I kind of think that just holding the KO ticket at plus 500 for Macy is just a little bit better than her money line because I kind of think, like you touched on, if Macy's getting off on the feet, which I think she is, if this stays standing, then she likely finds a finish. So, again, might be taking a poke on the plus 500 KO, but again, a lot of reserves on Macy still.
Yeah, I think I might take a shot at the KO prop as well. I have I think 2.5 units on Barber at the moment, and I might just poke a half unit on it because I do agree with you. if she is getting the fight she wants, she's going to punch Maverick very hard, very often in this fight. So I don't think it's a bad spot. Moving on, I'll start with you here. We got Darren Elkins taking on Derek Minner. What do you got? Sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're good. So similar to our last show with Maverick and Barber, there's a lot of recency bias here. And, Derek Minner is getting a lot of it because, we touch on this podcast a lot that when fighters aren't meeting resistance from their opposition, their cardio tends to, check out, look fine. They tend to not gas out in fights. That's kind of prime example of what we saw in the last fight with Charles Rosa. Horrible grappler and tends to play off of his back. Well, that's kind of the opposite of what Darren Elkins is. Darren Elkins is the better grappler here. And, he's going to push a high pace and he's going to be able to extend it for 15 minutes. Whereas, Minner's probably, as we all know, he's the round one sub king. If he doesn't get a finish here, likely in the first round, then I think Elkins probably takes over late here. So I like Elkins. I like Elkins by finish late here. I got a unit and a half on Elkins plus 140 money line. He's the better grappler here. If he doesn't get bonked in the first round and subbed, I think he takes over here.
Yeah, I agree completely. I'm on Elkins big. I'm probably going to add to it, to be honest. So, and it's funny, guys, because if you guys have been following us for a while, you know that this podcast is a bunch of Derek Minner simps. We were all hyping him up for his last fight. Like I said on the podcast.
TJ Laramie, too. The fight for that round one sub.
And I said I thought he could win a decision against Minner or against Rosa when everybody was saying, Minner dies early. The dynamic in the Rosa fight was very clear. Charles Rosa gives up dominant positions and doesn't work to get up, as you touched on. It's very different getting zero resistance and getting resistance in terms of cardio attacks. But even if you go back to the Rosa fight and you look at the last 2 minutes of round 3, after getting no resistance, he is gassed the fuck out on top of that fight and just trying to get to the fucking bell. And now he faces Darren Elkins. And I'll be honest, my biggest concern with Elkins is just that, his chin is slowly turned into paper mache. He seems to get hurt every fight now, which is concerning, but rarely gets finished. And I do think Minner hits hard and, there is a chance Minner could just nuke him out very fast. But how good a chance is that? Do I think it's a 25% chance? No, not really. I don't really think it's maybe 20%, if you want to be conservative about capping it. And then once you get past that, it's okay, well, is Minner just going to run through him? Well, Mirsad Bektic didn't run through him. He ran through him for a round, and then even in round 2, Elkins started holding his own. Minner's not Mirsad Bektic. Dennis Bermudez and Chaz Kelly are better grapplers than Derek Minner. Elkins ragdolled them. Ricardo Lamas, probably a better grappler than Derek Minner. Elkins held his own in that fight in the grappling. Elkins is a very, very good grappler. That's the thing. People get kind of trapped into thinking he sucks because the guy just eats a ton of shit on the feet and is gushing blood every fight. But when he can get a fight and get his arms around you, he will throw you around. And we watch it, and all Minner wants to do is go for that guillotine, but Elkins is going to do pretty much exactly what Grant Dawson did. Every time someone goes for one, he just passes the side control. I pretty much think if he doesn't get hurt and finished early here, eventually, that he's going to get his pace going on Minner, and probably he's going to get Minner's back and finish him. So I'm on him for 2 units. I'm planning to add to it on the money line. I'm going to be taking the sub. I'm going to be taking the ITD. I think, Uncle Tom, the beer Yoda, said earlier, how can you not take him plus money? I think this is the best spot on the entire card this week, to be honest. You're getting a guy who was ranked in the top 10 for not that long ago, who was a very good grappler, against Derek Minner, who was plus 160 against Charles Rosa a fight ago.
And not to mention the guy plus money here, he's going to grapple and non-stop grappling. You don't have to be and you don't have to be okay, maybe grapples, maybe he does this, sketchy game plan this night. You know what you're getting with Darren Elkins.
Yeah, he tried to grapple Mirsad Bektic first. He attempted 21 takedowns against Garagori in his last fight. He can push a pace, and Minner can't push a pace. I love Minner. I am a Minner fan, Primo, but I think Elkins drowns him here, and I think he finishes him.
And that's the thing. Even if you want to hedge out with Minner round 1, it's still plus 1,000. Minner round
is it really Minner round 1?
Round 1 sub is plus 1,000.
All right. The only guy to ever sub Elkins, though, is Charles Oliveira. But,
right.
I like Elkins a lot. We move on. We got another fun one here. We got Kyler Phillips taking on Raulian Paiva in the, I guess this would be the featured bout of the evening. And I have a bet on Paiva here. I have a unit and a half on Paiva at about plus 240. That line, I believe, is still there on BetMGM if you have access to it. It's funny because I'm not a particularly big Paiva guy. You know, I preached that Zalgas was the side when he fought him, but I'm also not a particularly big Phillips guy. And like, I think Phillips is fun. You know, he's a good grappler. He's a quality striker, but he's not a guy that I look at and I'm like, he's elite anywhere. I think he's solid, well-rounded. You know, he's pretty flashy. He seems to be a fairly dynamic finisher. But he's also got a really bad gas tank. You know, his volume fell in each consecutive round against Song. You know, we saw him after he lost on The Ultimate Fighter. He lost his first fight on the regional scene because he gassed out horribly. He slowed down against Gabriel Silva in round 3 as well. And I almost think you have to throw out the Cameron Else fight completely. And so, like, look, I think, you know, Phillips is a fairly skilled fighter. But Paiva, it's kind of funny how this works, right? Like 2 fights ago, people were hyping Paiva as a future champion. And now he's up here and he's plus 240 against Kyler Phillips, who wasn't in the UFC 16 months ago. So it's like, it's very, very strange to me. And like Paiva, like I said, I'm not a huge fan, but what he will do is he will push a pace. He's got good cardio and he's aggressive. And he's a great anti-grappler. Like, I don't see the scenario where Phillips can dominate this fight on the ground and win rounds there. I think he's got to win him on the feet. And even if I give him the credence of being a better striker, which to some degree I do, I think Paiva is going to be keeping enough of a pace that this is going to be pretty close on minutes early on. And I'd expect late in this fight, Paiva to completely take over, to be honest. So, like, I think Paiva wins the last round at a fairly high clip, could even finish there. And I think, you know, the early both rounds 1 and 2 favor Phillips, but I think not more than like 55, 60%. And so plus 240 seems kind of crazy to me. Like, I have a unit and a half on Paiva. I think Phillips should be about 55, 60% in this spot. But I think if you're getting 30% implied, I think you got to take the shot. What do you think, Legs?
So I have a little bit more credence for upside. I personally think, you know, 65, 70%, you know, isn't too bad personally on that. I don't know. I kind of think just more often than not, he's just the slightly better striker than Paiva. I just don't think Paiva's defense, you know, in that post, like that zombie, you know, coming forward nature, that high pace that he wants to bring.
Yeah.
I just don't think his defensive tendencies are, you know, great. But again, it's a plus 250. This isn't, you know, this isn't plus 130. This isn't plus 140. So I don't really hate Sab, I guess, but I don't know. For me, I think if I was betting Paiva, I would be betting Paiva decision at plus 440. And then conversely on the Phillips side, instead of taking him at minus 300, it's minus 105 for him by decision.
See, I like the Phillips side of that decision more than the Paiva side, just because the cardio aspect is there. So it's like one of those things where, you know, Paiva's going to zombie march down in round 3. But on the Phillips side, I agree. I mean, and it's kind of funny because I know Paiva's coming up from 25, but he's the same size as Phillips, actually. You know, Paiva was a big fucker at 25. Like, I don't know how the hell he was making that weight. But, yeah, so it's interesting. So we move on. We got the co-main event. Oh, sorry.
Real quick. Let me look up one more prop for you that I think you'd probably look into, which is the round 3 decision for Paiva, which I was hoping that's why, because I was thinking, I was like, oh, FanDuel had that prop.
Yeah.
Paiva round 3 decision is plus 360.
I like that. So, plus 360?
Yep.
I like that a lot. I do like that a lot. I think I'm probably going to poke that, to be honest with you. Are they up? Do they have everything up now?
No, that's what I was looking to, because I was giving a little pause because I knew only like a couple of these fights had props.
Like, I was trying to find the Eubanks 1-2 line earlier, but there was still nothing up to that fight.
That's another one I was talking about too. Discord. Yeah, Eubanks 1-2 is a solid prop outside of, you know, option.
Especially if we can get like plus 400 on it, like, or plus 300. I don't know what it's going to be, but
right.
But we move on. We got co-main event of the evening. Lags, I'll stick with you here. We got Aspen Ladd taking on Macy Chiasson. What are your thoughts here?
So I think similar to, not quite the degree with the Eubanks fight earlier, but I think this is a levels fight in the grappling with Ladd and Chiasson. I think this fight comes down to the grappling in the clinch, and I think Ladd is levels above her. I mean, obviously, touch on, you know, MMA math, this and that Landsberg fight. Obviously, we saw Landsberg dominate her on the mat. I think like similar. I think a Ladd late finish here probably wouldn't surprise me. I don't think Macy's cardio is that great. I don't think her wrestling's that great. I don't think her strike is that great. Like, striking on the feet here, it's probably maybe 50-50. I think both these girls are fairly hittable, but I think it's the grappling where it's won here. So I think Aspen finish, and I'm looking to parlay here probably with Eubanks.
Yeah, like, I'm strongly considering a play on Ladd, like I mentioned right before we went on here. Like, it makes me queasy the like, I don't like laying big chalk and women's in general, but I'm already doing it on Eubanks, and now I'm talking about doing it here. But like you said, it's like, yes, I think if Ladd stays at range and tries to strike with her, she's probably going to get the shit kicked out of her because I do think I don't think Macy's a great striker, but Ladd is unbelievably hittable, right? Yeah. And she's not throwing much back at her, but I do think Macy handles her on the feet pretty easily. My issue is really, it's funny because I've never been a Ladd guy really. Like I bet Eubanks against her, I bet GDR against her, but I do think, and to your point, like we saw Lena hold her in the clinch pretty easily, and Ladd is so strong in the clinch there. So it's like, even if she can't get the takedowns, this could just turn into like a Yana Kunitskaya fight where Ladd is just controlling her up against the fence. And if she can get the takedowns, I think she's going to cut through her like a hot stick through, like a hot knife through butter, to be honest, on the mat. Yeah. And plus, and that's the other thing. It's like one of the things that always concerns me with laying chalk in a spot like this is my fighter going to do what they need to do? Ladd's not going to fuck around striking. She knows she can't. She knows she's going to lose the fight there. She's going to bite the mouthpiece, go forward, and try to get inside and take her out. Narco mentioned he thinks Macy might KO her. I do think. That, and I agree with PayPal as well here. Like, I do think the KO coming in is a fairly live. It's a live outcome, but again, it's WMMA. Is she? Yeah. What do you say?
I guess real quick. I lost my train of thought there when you guys popped up comments. I guess laying the chalk here like minus 200. The issue, my thing is potentially would be just Macy getting a little bit of control time in the sense that like pushing her up against the cage, like a little bit of cage push time, because we saw Yana be a little successful with that. How long she's going to have the gas to be able to do that against Aspen, I don't know. And again, is she going to be able to do that in general because of the physicality of Ladd? I don't know either. So I don't know. It's a tough one.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Like I said, I haven't decided if I'm going to do it, man. Like it's. I just like. Because I do think the KO is a live outcome. I do think maybe winning a sequencing fight like that is live. It's just, I still sort of think Ladd probably gets her down and beats the fuck out of her on the mat like 70-75% of the time. Like, I don't, but yeah, I mean, the fact that I'm thinking
what's
like
under 2.5?
Yeah, but actually that's a good call. What is the under?
The under 2.5 is plus 130 and plus 140 in spots.
Is that where we're at with it? What's the Ladd ITD? I think that's actually
Ladd. So Ladd KO, we're looking around plus 340. Ladd ITD is plus 215, plus 220.
What the fuck? Okay, yeah, that makes sense, I guess, actually. Although I kind of like the Ladd KO a bit more, to be honest. Yeah. But
and Ladd sub, I think, was 5-1.
Yeah, I like the KO more, though. She throws a lot of ground and pound,
A lot of
we move on. We got the main event. You want me to start, or you want to start?
I have
you
like campfire. You like the campfire. We are. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have a pretty strong opinion on this fight. Look, I love Corey. I've bet Corey in his last two. Or no, that's not true. I bet Frankie against him. I didn't bet him in his last two fights. I did bet him big against Marlon. I did bet him big against Marlon Moraes, though. I bet him against the Sun Sao. I think Corey's an amazingly skilled striker, and I think, even looking at TJ at his peak, I'd say it's a close competitive striking fight, and, if TJ comes back at that, I think it's a close competitive fight on the feet. The thing that I can't get past with Corey, I can never get past it with him, is I think he's a bad grappler. And, I've seen – I know people are talking about, it's like, man, Corey's slick on the ground. He's a good grappler. He doesn't get held down by anybody. It's like, yes, I think, me and C were talking about it this week, but he's like a crafty submission grappler. Yes, like someone who doesn't know what they're doing on top with a guy with his length and submission acumen is in big trouble. But the reality is his get-ups aren't really remotely technical. They're either submission sweeps or giving his back to get up. And that kind of shit just doesn't work at a certain level. We saw it with the Aljo fight. That was fairly, we all thought on this podcast, that was fairly predictable outcome. Aljo was going to get his back right away. Now, I don't think TJ is going to get his back and is going to do anything like that Aljo did. But what I do think TJ can do here is basically kind of, just positionally grapple him. Like, we saw him do it to Lineker and just kind of mat return him over and over and just lock down position. TJ is somewhat good at that. Do I think he can do that for 20 minutes? No, I don't. But I do think when you're talking about the fact that, you have one guy in TJ who is basically like an A minus grappler, and a guy in Corey who personally, look, I wouldn't say Corey's a C submission grappler, but I would say his overall grappling between the takedown defense and the fact that his get-ups I don't particularly rate is probably like a C minus. It's just like one of the things, like if TJ's smart, he's obviously trained with this guy a lot, and he comes out and attempts 10 to 15 takedowns, he's probably going to get 5, 6, 7 of them. And if that's the case, it's hard to make him an underdog in this spot. Now, I think on the feet, like I said, I do think Corey's likely better if you assume regression for TJ. I think both guys are pretty dangerous. It's actually interesting if you look at their knockdown rates, they're actually similar. I think Corey's is like 1.7%, TJ's is like 1.4%. Both very good for 135 pounds. And both guys keep a high pace. But I think it is, reasonable to assume at this point that TJ's probably not the guy he was 2 years ago. With that kind of a hole there, and when it plays to his strength that TJ has, and he's got one of the best fight IQs in the history of the sport, him being 35, 40% implied just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I kind of view this fight, I said to you earlier this week that I thought 2 years ago when TJ was at his peak and was champion, I would have probably had him at about 60, 65%. I think it's reasonable to take 15 or so percent away from that and say he's 45, 50% here, but I can't go much further than that. Like maybe he is just completely shot and Sandhagen cuts through him here. That's a live outcome, but we're capping based on what we know. And like what I know of the two fighters, I would have bet TJ at this number. I would have maxed him 2 years ago at this number. I'm not doing that here because of, the obvious issues, but I do think he has a very, very clear path to victory here. He's a smart fighter and I expect him to take advantage of it. What do you think, Lags?
So from a money line perspective, I don't really disagree with you. Like I do think that, Corey minus 200, I don't really see a huge scenario of him covering that because of the grappling disadvantages that he, the grappling advantage, obviously, that TJ has here. And then on the feet, I think both of these guys are super explosive finishers and proven finishers, obviously at the highest level. And that's kind of why I'm more interested in the under here, because I like both that. Obviously, both guys can finish on the feet, and we have the huge grappling edge for TJ. And I'm kind of just, if TJ is able to grapple consistently for a few rounds, I'm interested to see what Corey's cardio looks like if he's able to just mat return. So personally, I have 1.5 units on the fight doesn't start round 4 at plus 100. Yeah, I kind of think Corey knocks him out personally on the feet. But
it could happen. I mean, look, TJ's been dropped a lot.
Right.
I mean, it has happened.
I just kind of think the layoff, the inactivity, obviously the steroid suspension coming off of that. But, I mean, from what we see in picks, though, he looks pretty good this week.
I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to play him for like more than a unit. This isn't an Elkins bet or anything like that. But Darren Elkins is the bet this week. That's the big bet this week. But I do think... Yeah, I mean, look, I laid it out what my thoughts are here. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets knocked out on the feet either. And actually, the cardio question, it's going to be interesting for both, I think. To your point, we've never seen Corey in round 4 before. Or really, the Aljo fight was a fight where he would have had to deal with a pace of wrestling he hasn't seen, and that was over in 2 minutes. Yeah. And TJ, on the other hand, the primary benefit of EPO is it gives more oxygen to your blood vessels, which is, I'll be honest, my assumption is that TJ was probably taking it his whole career because it's not very easy to fail for EPO. Frankly, you have to be a fucking moron to fail a drug test for EPO. But if he's not on it now, and I'm not convinced that he's not on it now, if he's not on it now, it is an interesting consideration. Like, I can't say, I think he's going to gas because we obviously have never seen that. But it's a live outcome.
Consideration too, yeah. And that's kind of my thing too. It's like you're getting even money for a fight where you have that potential consideration, 2-year-long layoff, inactivity that entire time, and then Corey's been active, getting again finishes at the highest level.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I haven't played anything here yet either, and also like if you look at TJ's career, I mean, outside if he had a stretch with Cruz, Lineker, and Asuncao where he went to 3 straight decisions, but all of those guys are like Asuncao and Cruz in particular are like defensive wizards, and Lineker is stupid durable. But other than that, he had sandwiching those are 6 fights that ended inside of 2 rounds, like that's or ended inside of 4 rounds, so it's like, TJ's a dynamic finisher and so is Corey, it is a good point, honestly. So I think that's interesting. I like TJ. He's my lean here. Again, I'm not really passionate about it. I think But I do think he has a skill set to give Corey trouble. I guess that's what what I'll say.
I'll say what's interesting. What's interesting too, I guess, is, and I'm looking at it too on best fight odds. The fight doesn't go the distance; it's hovering around like that minus 250 line. But we're getting fight doesn't start round 4 minus plus 100.
Is that really where it is?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I'll check on FanDuel real quick.
No, you're right. I'm looking at it. FanDuel is at minus 310.
Yeah, and then you still have the fight. Yeah, fight doesn't go the distance minus 310, and then we still have the alt. So now
that's really strange.
So now it's minus 116 for 1, 2, 3. So it doesn't start round 4.
I mean, even the distribution between round 5 and distance, though. Round 5 on FanDuel is minus 186. That's 65% implied. Whereas, I don't know, man. That's kind of weird. That is kind of weird.
Minus 116. Fight doesn't start round 4 on FanDuel. Get it right now while you can.
I haven't decided how I'll play it, but I'm probably going to play TJ. Although I love Corey, so it's like one of these things. Like I want Corey. If and when Jan eventually takes Aljo's head, I want Corey to be the guy that takes him out and shoots him, because I really think that's going to happen at some point. And I don't feel very confident about TJ against Jan, but and TJ's kind of a cunt, so it's like, sorry, TJ. But I do think he provides some stylistic issues here for Corey. But yeah, guys, that's gonna do it.
I'll add one more quick thing. I don't like how TJ's playing the victim either here. Bunch of bullshit.
Dude,
he's playing because he's like, oh, I dealt with adversity and now it's like, I was like, dude, it's just justice for cheating. Z tweeted out earlier, so shout out to Z's MMA, but he was talking about that earlier in an interview. It's like, dude, you were cheating.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And honestly, even if you watch his interviews back in the day, like TJ kind of always he's been super cringe. It's funny because like he's almost as cringe as Cejudo is intentionally, except TJ is completely unintentional about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't like him much at all. I just have respect for the fighter that, he was and maybe still is. So, we'll see. One other thing, I touched on it with you and Luke, and I'd like to, we'll talk in the club and subgroup and see what happens at this. But something we're talking about doing, guys, maybe for the next pay-per-view, maybe after the summer, we'll see going back to live shows, but instead of doing it on YouTube where you don't have to look at our ugly faces jumping up and down and drinking, maybe doing it on, not Lags' ugly face. Look at that. You can cut a diamond on that chin. But maybe moving over to Twitter Spaces and doing it live during the events, then between fights, doing questions or chat if anybody wants to do it. But we're going to try to add some new things. We're going to try to get this audio shit figured out. Tonight it was my fault.
And then one last request from Luke.
Yeah.
So Sojaro Eubanks is a cross between Lance Armstrong and David Goggins.
That's right.
Shout out, Luke.
Yeah, guys, do it tonight. If you enjoyed the show, guys, please drop a like and subscribe. We really like it. Our goal, we'd really like to get to 500 before the end of summer. We need 19 more of you to do it. We're getting 600 views every week. Just subscribe to the channel. But we appreciate you. We're going to keep doing it anyway. Again, if you don't have BetOnline yet and you want to get it for a 50% bonus on your first $1,000 deposit, you can use the promo code CLUBSUB. You got Lags at Lags_this_capper, myself, John Stargarian at MMA Fox, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for coming out. Peace.